Today we are going to look at making top international presentations on science and engineering, presentations that you could make at any conference, at any level, anywhere in the world. And you don't even need to be a native speaker to do that or even have very good English. So I'm going to give you just 9 rules to help you make an excellent presentation on any topic related to science or engineering, technology or mathematics. But the first thing we need to understand is, why are we making these presentations? Why are they so important? Well, if you are going into a career related to science or engineering, you will have to spend a lot of time communicating your ideas to people around you. They might be other people on your research team. They might be people within your organization, whether it's a university or a business, or it might be communicating ideas to the general public to help them understand the importance of what you're doing. But really, the most important point of a presentation, from your point of view, is to get recognition. You need people to understand who you are and what you do and why it's important. And this means that technical presentations are different to business presentations and certainly political presentations. In the case of business and certainly politics, a large part of what you're doing is actually trying to confuse your audience. Maybe you're trying to tell people you've got a new phone. Great, but let's be honest, this phone is only a little bit better than the last one. Maybe it's a bit bigger, maybe it's a bit smaller, but it's not super great. But with a technical presentation, you are trying to get really complex ideas from your head. And if you are a professional researcher, these will be ideas that nobody has put together before. And you are trying to get them from your head into the heads of the people that are listening to you. And you're trying to do it in a way so that they can understand those ideas. And that is what makes technical presentations so complex. Now, before we go on, I've already made some videos about a presentation that I prepared myself. And maybe after you've seen this one, you'll want to go through and watch those videos and see how you can actually put your own presentation together to make sure the slides are also at that top international level. Now, I informally grade presentations on a 5-level scale. So I rank them starting with awful, bad, okay, good, and excellent. Most of them, if they are technical presentations, most of them will be around the bad level. A few of them will be at least okay. And if you're lucky, you'll see a few good presentations. If you follow these rules, you will be making an excellent presentation at the international level. Right, no more messing about. Let's get straight on to rule number 1. Rule number 1 is engage your audience. It is the most important rule, and if you don't remember anything else from this video, at least remember that. If you engage your audience, you will be making presentations at least at the okay level. To engage your audience means to make a connection with them. How do we do this? Well, we do this first by facing our audience. You want to face the audience right the way through your presentation. Now, of course, sometimes you have to turn off to the side, maybe with a laser pointer, and point to something in your presentation. But as soon as you can, you want to get back and face square on to your audience. And as much as possible, you want to be making eye contact. Eye contact with everybody in the room. The people front left, those people front right, back left, back right, in the middle, and then back round again. It's particularly difficult to get those people in the corners, but you really need to get them because this is where people sit if they're expecting to have a bit of a snooze in the middle of the presentation session. If you can reach those people, then you are reaching everybody in the room. Now, I mentioned the importance of eye contact. Why is it so important? Why is it so important to have your body square onto the audience? Well, this is very simply because we are primates. Our ancestors were apes and monkeys and lived communally. And what this means for us as primates is that if somebody is looking at you, you've got to pay attention because it's either very good or it's very bad. So there is a part of our subconscious which is devoted to waking you up if somebody looks at you. If you turn around and see somebody looking at you, you didn't realize that they were looking at you before, but part of your brain has woken you up. Right, there's somebody over there looking at you, and you'll turn. You will turn your head without realizing that you are looking for somebody looking back at you. It's a real deep down reflex. And what that means is, even if people are busy looking at your slides, part of their heads will be registering, there's somebody looking at me. And that means they will have to stay awake, stay alert to what is going on. If somebody is facing you, that could mean confrontation. In normal human interactions and conversations, we naturally turn side on to somebody. Now, of course, in normal human groups, we don't worry about it so much, but remember that subconscious part of our brains waking us up going, hang on, what's going on here? By facing our audience, by making that eye contact with everybody in the room, we are making them wake up and pay attention. So it is so important. It gives everybody in that room the feeling that you are talking just to them. Now, the same thing applies to online conferences and presenting to a webcam. You still have to engage the webcam. You don't want to be doing this, looking at your slides, looking at your cursor and talking to your screen, because people can see that. You need to be talking directly to your webcam as much as you can. In fact, all of these rules apply to online conferences just as much as they apply to real in-person presentations. Now, I know that it is difficult for many people to look other people in the eyes and to face forward. There is a trick. You can do this. In this case here, I am looking not at the eyes of my audience, but at the desk behind them. If I'm looking at this person over here, I don't look directly at them, I look at the desk behind that person. If somebody's sitting right back against the back wall, I look at the wall just behind them. And if I do that right around the room, it is almost as good as looking people directly in the eye. It is extremely effective. And this way, you don't need to make eye contact with anybody. But if you can, there is nothing better than very brief eye contact. Now, there is a trap that we need to look out for, and it's what I call the friendly face trap. What often happens is that when you're in a room, you will spot somebody that has a friendly face. Maybe they are smiling at you. Maybe they're nodding to what you're saying. It's very easy then for your gaze to be attracted to that person. And then what happens is that you point to the screen and talk to that person, point to the screen, talk to that person, point to the screen again, and talk to that person, but you end up only talking to that one person. You have lost the rest of the room. So as difficult as it is, you have to pull yourself away from the friendly face and make sure you're going right around the room and all the way to those corners as well as the middle parts. Now, don't fall into the trap that most speakers make, which is to point something on your slide and just keep talking to your slides. I see this so often. It's probably the most common behavior that I see at technical presentations. They're talking about some diagrams on their slides and they just keep talking to the slides. If you do that, anybody who's not interested will start looking at their desk, start thinking about what they're going to do tonight, start thinking about maybe their own work or whatever else is on their mind. And you are going to lose most of the audience. The other trap is to be reading your notes from your computer directly. And we'll talk about that a bit more later. But if you allow your audience to be comfortable because you are not looking at them, looking away from them, then they feel comfortable with doing their own thing. And they will not remember your talk. And then you will have just wasted your time. And as we know from my videos on preparing courses, it takes about 2 weeks to make a presentation. So if you don't hold that audience, you will have wasted that 2 weeks of work. So rule number 1, engage your audience. Rule 2 is practice, practice, practice. You need to practice your talk properly before you do it. Very simply, you need to do it exactly as you will do it on the day. You start by introducing your name. Good afternoon, I'm da 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 da. And you do everything all the way through your presentation until the very last word, where you say something like, and finally, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you. In between that, you do everything you will expect to do at the presentation. You will stand up. You will point with a pretend laser pointer at your pretend presentation screen, and you will look around the room and engage your imaginary audience. Rule 3. Now, this rule is especially for people who aren't confident in their English, but it works also for native speakers who maybe aren't confident about public speaking. And rule 3, very simply, is communicate. Don't worry about making nice sentences. Nobody cares. This isn't a school lesson, or at least I'm not teaching you to make presentations for school lessons. This is about real technical communication. People want to understand the content of your talk. They don't care if your English or if your sentences are good, well-formed sentences. What that means is, as long as you communicate what you are trying to say, it'll work. For example, something that goes like, we make catalyst, but problem is ligand, very unstable. Now, not great English, just a few words, but people don't care. As long as you are explaining the facts, getting that information, getting that technical information from your brain into their brain, that's all they want to know about. So don't worry about making great sentences. This is not the place for that. And what that means is you can relax. You can spend a bit more time talking a bit more slowly, thinking about what it is that you want to say, and communicate with words. You don't want to remember sentences. Make up your words on the spot. Use the words as they come to you. Now, if you do your practice properly, as we've just been talking about, you will know how to do that. Those words will come more easily. So you do not want a definite sentence, a complete sentence. We are not acting here. We just want to be able to say this thing plus this thing means this thing. This is our cause. This is the effect. Make sure you have that structure in your brain and relax and communicate those points using whatever words and communication is available to you. Rule 4, use good delivery. This means your voice needs to project right the way to the back of the room. You do not want to be talking like this. Things like, can catastrophic weather such as forest fires. In order to project your voice to the back of the room, you need to make sure that you are standing up, of course, and you need to breathe from your stomach, from your belly. This is what singers do. Expand your belly as you breathe in and then speak from there. This will bring your voice out. It'll bring the more bass tones in your voice out, and it will help your voice reach the back of the room. It will also help to give you more authority, which was another useful point for your presentation. Remember, for that 10 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever, you are the king of the room. The next most important aspect of delivery is to be enthusiastic. Sound excited about your presentation. Make it sound like it's the best thing ever, even if you're really bored of it. And let's be honest, if you've been working on this project for maybe a year or 2 or 3 years even, you probably have got a bit bored of it by this time. You've certainly made a few presentations by this time, maybe to your research group, and yeah, okay, But this is a huge mistake when people start talking in their presentation like it's something they've just got to get through. If you sound like you're just trying to get through your presentation, yeah, we made this catalyst, the ligand was quite unstable, and we had to replace a methyl group on this position, and that fixes stability issues. If you're not enthusiastic, nobody else will be. But going the other way, if you sound enthusiastic, if you sound excited, everybody will be excited, even if it's really boring. If you say, well, we had this problem with the ligand on our catalyst. It was almost the perfect ligand. We had the behavior that we were looking for, but it just fell apart. We had really low turnover numbers. But in the end, we worked out that just putting a methyl group in the meta position stabilized the whole thing. Wow. Even people that don't really know what you're talking about will sit up and go, oh, well, he sounded excited about that. That must be something pretty good. We do have to be careful that we don't push things a little bit too much the other way. If we sound super bright and excited about everything all the way through the whole talk, then we lose that emphasis. If we say, today I am going to talk to you about my catalyst. My catalyst is amazing. We did this, we did that, we did the other thing. Then everything is up here and people can't see your important points then. So what you need to do is work out what is background information. You should have a mid-level, a level for background information, and then this is important. And background, and this is important. So absolutely remember to be enthusiastic, but remember to tone it down to find that balance. Now, a very important point related to this is how fast you should talk. Technical communication presentations should be fairly slow. And in fact, when you are standing on the stage and delivering your presentation, it should feel uncomfortably slow, almost like it's a bit weird, like you were talking to somebody that really didn't understand what you were talking about. And the reason it needs to be slow is because on your slides, you will have a whole range of complex topics and ideas. And your audience needs time to listen to these ideas. And they need time to think about it and to process it and to then say, all right, okay, that's what he means. Okay, she means da-da-da-da-da. All right, okay, I get it now. And as I say, this is very different to business or politics. In business, hey, get our new phone. It's super amazing. It's not super amazing. It's just a bit better than the last one. But you don't want people to realize that. In politics, hey, I'm going to make everything better for everybody and it's not going to cost anybody anything. Absolute rubbish. But you don't want people to realize that. But in technical communication, we need people to follow us. We need to make a trail for them that they can follow. Leave out that trail, leave out that rope so that they can follow this chain of reasoning. That means your talk has to slow down. And that's very difficult. So if we put these three things together, using good delivery to project your voice to the back of the room, speaking slowly so that people have time to think about what you're saying, and then being enthusiastic about key points in your presentation, people will not only be able to listen to you more, they will want to listen to you more. And this is one of the key points that will help them to remember your presentation afterwards. Rule number 5 is do not read your presentation. Now, this is actually almost a summary of the rules that we've been seeing before, but I need to say it because I see it so often. Very simply, if you read your presentation, whether you have it written on a piece of paper here, or whether it's written on your computer screen, if you read your presentation directly, 2 bad things will happen. Firstly, you will not be engaging your audience. Secondly, you will sound like you are a robot, because only professional actors can make reading from text sound natural. If you practice properly, and if you don't worry about making great sentences, which we don't need to do for good communication, then you won't need to write anything down. You can have notes. Notes are fine. Notes are great. I recommend that. Just simple notes like a newspaper headline. Just basic things to remind you, say this, say that thing. But don't have your exact sentences written out. Don't write them out and then remember them. I can always spot when somebody has remembered their talk, and it never sounds good. Also, what's going to happen is that if you try and remember your sentences, at some point you're going to forget what you want to say. And then you're going to be really stuck. If you're finding this helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you subscribe, you'll know when the next videos come out. And if you have any questions or thoughts, just put them down in the comments. Okay, on with rule number 6. Rule number 6, take mini breaks. In the middle of your talk, you will forget what you want to say. Even if you've practiced the way I've told you to practice, you will forget what you want to say several times. So what do you do about that? Very simply, you take a mini break. You just stop, think about what you wanted to say, and carry on. You can literally take 1 or 2 seconds, even 3 seconds if you want to. No one will notice. Well, is climate engineering an option? Climate engineering is the idea that we can somehow... Is climate engineering an option? Climate engineering is the idea that... Remember that people aren't even looking at you for the vast majority of the presentation. They're thinking about what's on the slides. They won't notice that you've taken 1 or 2 seconds to stop and think about what you want to say. Especially if you remain relaxed. And this is the key to a mini break. Stop, relax, let a breath out, think about what you wanted to say. Oh yeah, and carry on. If you're really stuck, a little trick is to stop and take a sip of water. Most places will at least have a glass of water for you. If they don't, then you might want to take your own bottle of water to be ready. Well, excuse me. Well, is climate engineering? What you don't want to do is panic. And this is something I see a lot, and I see it especially if people are reading their presentation or if they have memorized it. When they stop and they can't remember what's coming next, if you panic, it's impossible to remember the next thing. The more you panic, you've got all these people looking at you, the harder it becomes. When in fact, all you need to do is just stop, let out a breath, think again, what am I talking about now? Oh yeah, that, and carry on, and no one will notice. Rule number 7 is watch your time. Timekeeping is so important for a whole bunch of reasons. Firstly, of course, you've got people coming after you, so they don't want to be kept waiting for their presentation. Also, you have your audience. They don't want the presentation to go on for longer than they're expecting. Certainly if you're the only person or the last person presenting, they'll want to get away again and get on with whatever it is that they want to do. Often they'll be hungry. So if you make people wait, they start to get irritated with you, and you don't want that. But more important than that even, is that you want to protect your question time. Now, a very common situation at conferences and symposiums and things like that is that you will have maybe 10, 20 minutes, whatever, for your presentation, and then there will be maybe 5 or 10 minutes for questions afterwards. And you want to protect that question time because you want questions. Now, we'll talk briefly about questions right now. Questions basically come in 3 kinds. There are the super easy questions, and they're super easy because you're actually an authority on the topic of your presentation. If you're giving that presentation, then you've done more research than almost anybody else in that room. So most of the questions that come to you will be very simple. The second kind of question are the impossible questions. And they're impossible because maybe they're coming to you from somebody outside of your discipline, or maybe somebody's asking you a question about an experiment that you didn't perform. And, there are very good reasons you didn't perform that experiment, so you can't answer it. And the third question is the great question, the question that gives you an idea, that somebody helps you. Have you thought about this? Have you tried doing that? No, I haven't, but that's a great idea. Thank you very much. Those are the only 3 questions you will get in a real professional technical presentation. This isn't like school. No one's trying to catch you out or find out whether you did your homework or not. They just want to know and understand about your presentation. But connected to that, remember our point about making a good impression. Imagine you're somewhere where there are a few presentations going on. We have speaker A. They finish their presentation and the chairperson says, "Any questions?" Maybe one person puts their hand up. Now imagine presenter B gets up. "Any questions?" Question over here. Okay, great. Question over here. Okay, great. Question over here. If you've made presentation at the good or certainly the excellent level, you will have lots of questions. And I've seen this many times. You can be at a conference, at a symposium, and maybe I'm not personally interested in that topic, but when I see one person get a question, and then another question, and then another question, and then another question, I realize this was an important talk. So you want to protect that question time, because if you deliver an excellent presentation, then you will fill up that 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, and that is what you want. Now, as an undergraduate or below, you might often find that your difficulty is presenting for as long as 10 minutes or something like that. But once you start doing your own real research project, you'll find the difficulty is in keeping down to time. If you've been working on a research project for a year or 3 years or however long, Talking about all of that work in just 10 minutes is almost impossible. So how do you fix that problem? Well, what most people do is they put in as much as they can and speak really quickly. And this completely destroys their delivery. The audience cannot follow anything they're saying, and it ends up being a big waste of time. Rather, what you have to do is take material out until you can just speak for 10 minutes at a proper, slow, measured pace. And that is hard. It is really difficult to decide what stays in and what comes out. But it is absolutely necessary, and it will make a huge difference to your presentation. Remember, a short presentation, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, is not really going to educate people about the details of what you're doing. It's more like an advert, a sort of commercial. You are saying to people, this is who I am, this is what I do, come and talk to me later. So don't worry about missing out small details that maybe you think are important, because if your audience wants to know about them, they'll ask you about them in the question and answer session afterwards. So that's another good reason for protecting that Q&A time. And that means you need to practice and practice properly. And then what you must do is watch your time. How do you do that? Well, there's a couple of different ways. The easiest way and my favorite way is to use presenter tools on the computer. I have a screen with my present screen. It has all of my timings on there, a stopwatch, the actual clock time, and I can just glance at that screen anytime I want and just check how I'm doing. Okay, I'm on slide 4 now. Where do I expect to be on slide 4? And then maybe I can move up or move down a little bit to get that timing to be just right. Often, of course, we have to do our presentations using someone else's computer. This is very common at big conferences where they have one computer set up at the front. Everybody else has to use a USB stick to get their presentation on and use that one. This means you might not have the option of using presenter tools. Very often the screens are mirrored, so the laptop or whatever and the main projector screen are showing exactly the same thing. In that case, you're going to need a watch. Now here you have to be careful. If the audience see you checking the time, they're all going to check the time too, and you do not want that. Here's a little trick that I recommend. Wear your watch on the other side of your wrist, on the inside of your wrist. And during that presentation, you can quickly glance at that watch without anybody noticing. Rule 8 is get into the presentation room no later than 10 minutes before, and preferably at least 30 minutes before, and set up your presentation. If it's on your computer, then set it up on your computer. Make sure that your laptop will communicate with the projector properly. If it's on somebody else's computer, make sure that you've transferred the files properly. Make sure anything that is in your presentation works smoothly. Have you got a link to a YouTube video, for example? Is that video going to run or not? Make sure everything is working the way you expect it to work. And you want to make sure that you've got time to fix whatever problems that you come across. HDMI not working is a classic one. Not being able to get your computer to communicate with a projector, or videos that just don't work for some reason because a file or a link is missing. You might even need time to go running back to an office or something. So make things easy for yourself. Make sure you're at the room at least 10 minutes before if you are the only person presenting, and 30 minutes before if you are presenting with other people. Remember, everyone is going to be queuing up to make sure their presentation works. Don't forget to give your slides a quick click through to make sure that everything is there and looking the way that it should look. And finally, this last point really belongs to the preparation stage of your presentation, but I'm going to repeat it here because it's so important. Know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Almost every presentation will have to be different because you will be making it to a different group of people. If I am giving a presentation to other people who work in my field, I will have to change it for an audience of general chemists. And then if I am giving a presentation on the same topic to maybe the faculty of engineering or the faculty of science, I will need to change that presentation again. If I am giving a presentation on that topic to the general public, well, yes, then I've got to change it again. So remember who you are talking to and think about how you are going to present things. Maybe you need to change your emphasis. Maybe you need to change the way that you speak. You will certainly have to change your slides. Make sure you are thinking, who is my audience? Who am I talking to? When you are given the chance to present something, for that, let's say 10 minutes or however long your presentation is, the audience have given you permission to be the boss, to be the king of the room. Because someone speaking while everybody else listens is a dominant action. If you think about school classes, for example, the teachers speak and the students are expected to listen. It's the teachers who decide who speaks and when. So if somebody has decided that you are going to be the one speaking for those 10 minutes, for that 10 minutes, it means you're the boss. It means the people in the room give you permission to behave in a way that you don't normally behave. They will accept you facing them straight on. They will accept you making eye contact. Of course, it's brief eye contact. You're not going to be staring anybody down, but they will let you do that where maybe they wouldn't let you do that in a normal conversation. Now, we must not... Sorry. That take the CO2 out of the air. But the problem with these, excuse me, the problem with these is that... So, there we go, 9 rules for top international presentations. Note that I didn't call them hints, I didn't call them steps, because they are rules. You cannot miss out any of those if you want to make a presentation at the excellent level. The more of those rules that you drop out, the more you will fall down the scale from excellent at the top level down towards the dreaded awful at the bottom. But they're not so difficult and they only take a little bit of thought. As long as you think about it and tick those rules off and say, yes, I'm doing that. Yes, I'm doing that. If you do your practice properly and incorporate these rules into your practice, then you'll be fine. And you will be making a top international presentation.